Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the Bible. I hope you had a great weekend, and I'm really glad to be back with you today. I want to turn our attention to our recent readings from the first letter of Peter. For a number of reasons based on both style and date, First Peter is often understood to be a letter written by someone in Peter's name, but not by the Apostle Peter himself. It's a text written after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD to Christians who had spread throughout the Roman region. It's written during a time of growing tension between the practices and establishments of Roman society and the perceived threat that they saw in the foreign religion of Christianity. Both Jewish Christians and Gentile converts found themselves in a society in which many saw them as the ones who would undermine the accepted social practices of Rome in the day. And so it's to that tension that this letter is written as an encouragement, a call to steadfast faithfulness, if you will, for those caught in the middle of that tug and pull. And it's with that context in mind that I want to share the words of 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. Rid yourselves, therefore, of all malice, and guile, insincerity, envy, and all slander. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow into salvation, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is good. Come to him, a living stone, though rejected by mortals, yet chosen and precious in God's sight, and like living stones, let yourselves be built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. You are what you eat. That's the phrase that immediately started running through my mind as I read those words. It's a phrase that has a lot of different forms. You are what you think, you are what you love, and so forth. And this particular phrase, you are what you eat, seems to have emerged out of some 19th century concepts that became central to a 1942 book by Victor Lindlar titled You Are What You Eat: How to Win and Keep Health with Diet. Now, for Lindlar, of course, this is a purely physical notion. What we put into our bodies has a direct and substantial impact on our overall health. If you eat a variety of nutritional foods, your body is going to reflect that in how you feel. If you eat nothing but cheeseburgers and French fries every day, you're going to know that too. The reason the phrase went running through my mind as I read those words, however, is that the same is true in our faith. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow into salvation. Our spiritual lives are no different in this way than our physical bodies. You are what you eat. We are constantly surrounded by a buffet overflowing with this cornucopia of things that we can choose as the food for our spirits. Cable news channels, papers, magazines, social media, blogs, the Nextdoor app, the neighborhood gossip down the street. I could go on and on with these. In any given moment, we have this abundant plethora of things that we take in, feed upon, and digest in our daily living. But the unavoidable reality is that we're going to feel that. And that's what the author is pointing towards in these words. Just like nourishing our bodies with that well-balanced intake of nutritional foods If we nourish our spirits with the pure spiritual milk of our faith, we're going to feel the enlivened energy of that intake. And just like eating nothing but cheeseburgers and French fries every day, if we do nothing but feed on social media and cable news, we're going to feel that too. Now, we all know that in life, it's not an either-or proposition. You can have a healthy diet and still eat an ice cream sundae or a slice of pizza now and then. It's not about entirely or permanently curtailing all intake of any of those other things. It's about being thoughtful and intentional about the choices we are making in regard to what is providing energy to our bodies, to our lives. And I would suggest that the same is true for that which we're using to feed our souls. If watching the news helps you feel informed, fine. If you enjoy spending time in social media, fine. I'm glad you're here today. If 1980s style slasher movies are your thing, have at it. This isn't a question of cutting ourselves off from the world around us. It's a question of being thoughtful and intentional about the choices we are making in regard to that which is providing energy to our lives. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow into salvation. In a world that provides us with that overflowing buffet filled with that cornucopia of options to feed our souls, all I'm suggesting is that we need to be thoughtful sometimes about how much we're binging on the pizza and ice cream. And about how often perhaps we should put a bit more of our focus on the scriptures, on the studies, on the worship and the prayer that is that pure spiritual milk that draws us into the glory of our salvation. Let's be in prayer together. God of boundless gifts, what a blessing it is that our lives are surrounded by so many opportunities and joys in our everyday. Help us, God, as we make the most of your gifts to remember the spiritual milk that feeds our souls. Help us to take the time to set aside the distractions and the temptations, that we may in our everyday grow in the wonder of our salvation in Jesus, the Christ. In his name, amen. As always, I'm so grateful that you took the time to be here. I thank you for joining me, and I will see you here on Thursday at noon for our next journey through the Bible. Have a wonderful afternoon.